What popular rumor in your school turned out to be true? These took place in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Girl in my high school got into a very bad car accident and was in the hospital in a full body cast for a very long time. During that time, her boyfriend somehow managed to get her pregnant, and she later had an abortion. Years after high school, I became friends with someone who was her best friend in high school. She told me that it wasn't the first time this boyfriend had gotten her pregnant, or that she had had an abortion. Also, there was some controversy over whether the hospital sex was consensual or not. Also, her parents had to pay a lot of money for her to get therapy. Also, in high school, there was this kid I view as an arrogant punk. He always had a ton of money and was into photography. Apparently, his father was a professional photographer. The rumor was that he was paying a lot of money to the hottest girls in our school to pose nude for him, penthouse style. At the time, I had seen Playboys at no penthouses and didn't realize that the poses in Penthouse were a little more explicit. I ran into him a couple of decades later and we went to a nearby bar to have some drinks. He seemed very humble at this point, as if life had grinded him down. He admitted to me that he had become an alcoholic. I told him about the rumor and he confirmed it, saying his father had put him up to it and that his father was the one who wanted the pictures. And that was why his father gave him so much money. After his father died, he inherited all his stuff and while going through some boxes, he ran across the pictures. He destroyed them immediately, not wanting to get caught with them because they were of underage girls. I'll add this one, even though it has not been confirmed and is probably somewhat true, but not completely true as told. There were rumors that a girl who was a senior and I was a sophomore appear in a porn film while she was in high school. Again, this was the late 70s, probably 1978. And we were only about 20 miles from San Francisco, where a lot of those films were being made at the time. Also, she would have been 18 at the time. There are a few guys I know who have spent the last 40 years trying to find this film. I think that with the internet and all the resources available, IMDb, IAFD, Zomster and so on, if this film existed with her in it, someone from high school would have found it by now. I've heard from another that may know that all she did was agree to be an extra in a scene where she and a bunch of other extras unskinny dipping in a river for about $40, and that no one knows, including her, what happened to the film. My guess is that someone heard about this and decided to embellish the story. Rumor was the junior high English teacher was a bit of a perv. Most of our parents would say, hey, stop joking about that. Turned out he was. About 10 years ago, he was arrested, charged and convicted on child porn charges. Edit. For all the people asking, because I can answer each one individually, he wasn't discovered and charged until after he'd been teaching for years. Almost a decade after I graduated from HS, there was a complaint he'd been selling weed in exchange for, and finally one of the parents got wind. Police raided his place, found weed and tapes and other things. He was put in jail and of course lost his job. Got stabbed by one of his prior victims, so there's some justice. Small towns, eh? Edit 2. I get that people are upset about background checks, but this was in the late 70s, early 80s, so let's face it, background checks were mostly calling references and previous jobs. It was simpler, stupider time. There were rumors that there was a network of underground tunnels that connected every building on my college campus. Didn't believe it till I walked through them myself. I know that's not about teachers fucking kids or incest or whatever, but I still think it's interesting. Edit. Well, I kind of expected this to stay buried, but here we are. To clear up the mysteries still remaining and elaborate a bit. One Grand Valley State University in Grand Rapids. But the tunnels are under the main campus in Allendale. To confirm they were maintenance and steam tunnels. Some older sections may have doubled as bomb shelters. As a student, I had a job that allowed me to request keys to pretty much anywhere on campus, without question. The first time I found the tunnels was because I opened a door labeled maintenance in the basement of a dorm and found myself staring down an incredibly long corridor. For my GV brothers and sisters who are on campus now, look for the big metal cylinders scattered throughout campus that look like huge central AC units, or hook related. You'll sometimes hear fan sounds coming from them. Those are access points, vents to the tunnel system. Off the top of my head, I know there's one outside Mackinac Hall, one outside Kirchhoff if you enter by the clock tower, and one outside the back entrance to the music building. There's dozens more, but it's been a while. Happy hunting. There was a rumor going around in my high school that an English teacher and a biology teacher were sleeping with each other. I thought it didn't make any sense at all, other than being strict teachers who graded harshly. It's not like they had anything in common. And I'd never even seen them talking to each other or interacting in any way. They were both married, and besides, she was youngish and attractive and he was not. I had always figured that someone who managed to flunk both classes at the same time just decided to start a rumor. My brother is 6 years younger than me, and during his time at the school, they both were fired suddenly in the middle of the school year. Turns out it was true all along. They had been caught fraternizing on school grounds. I was pretty surprised. Of all the weird rumors that go around in a typical school, that was the one that had to be true. When I was a sophomore in high school, the basketball coach became the new principal of the school. He had a girl who was on the girls' basketball team worked in his office. Back then, students were allowed to work as an office assistant if their grades were good. And if they're seniors, she was there almost all the time, even when she wasn't supposed to be. The rumor was that they were sleeping with each other, because people would see them doing things after school, like running together and go out to eat somewhere. These rumors were later blew off as nothing, because even though he was the principal, he still devoted his time to an after-school jogging, running class to help students and teachers stay active and keep in shape, and buying dinner at McDonald's for a student isn't the same as taking them somewhere more extravagant, like steakhouse. After I came back as a junior from summer break, everyone in our class and in the entire school found out that they both got married and were expecting their first child together. He was married with children from a previous marriage that ended after the girl graduated from high school. It wasn't really a rumor, more of an open secret. One of our English teachers was in the IRA. One of our history teachers once showed us a documentary about the early years of the Troubles, mainly the civil rights movement. And sure enough, in the film, you can see our English teacher standing holding a rifle without even a mask on him. At that point, it wasn't really a secret anymore. IRA membership was supposed to be secret, but if you were in it, everyone knew about. The fact his membership was confirmed with that video always made me laugh at it. Was not expecting this to take off the way it did overnight. So here's a bit more context. This happened over 20 years ago. The school is in the north of Ireland, in a Republican area. A lot of people, myself included, would have had relatives involved with the IRA or INLA. For example, the father of one of the boys in my year at school was a genuine local legend because of what he had done during the 70s when he was on the run. Other people would have been very close relations to a few of the hunger strikers who died in 1981. Everyone, and I mean everyone, would personally know a member of those organizations, even if they weren't related to one. What I'm saying here is, the IRA were an entirely normal part of our society. The vast majority of people would have seen them as legitimate, and no different to how other normal societies would view their police and armed forces. So, whenever we seen our teacher in the video, no one was shocked, or anything like that. Everyone already had an idea that he'd been a member. We just thought it was funny that he wasn't wearing a mask. When was in high school. One year for history, we were assigned to interview a Vietnam veteran. Looking back, I'm really surprised there wasn't more oversight over what could be a very sensitive topic. A bunch of my friends and I were in the same Boy Scout troop, and my best friend's dad was a vet, so we asked him if we could interview him, and he agreed. One of the questions was something about how he was regarded when he came home, and he said something remarkably similar to this. In fact, it was part of why he did a second tour. Basically, if nobody here wants me around, I'll go back there to be among people where I'm appreciated. That assignment seemed like a bit of a pain at the time, to have to bother someone else for their time, but looking back, it was one of the most impactful. My best friend, whose dad we interviewed, later told me that was the most he had ever heard his dad talk about his time in Vietnam, and thanked us for asking him to do it. Now that I'm thinking about it, that history teacher had several pretty great teaching methods. Two others that came to mind. We learned about the stock market, and he ran a stock market simulation in class. There were only 3 stocks to choose from, but the pricing was solely determined by the buying and selling among his history classes, which meant pricing would fluctuate even while you weren't in class. Our grade for this project, he told us, would in part be based on how our portfolio performed. Over a few days, the market was roaring and people were going crazy buying. Prices were booming and everyone was happy. Then one day, I think the day before the end, we came in and the prices were significantly down. Immediately, everyone's trying to dump their portfolios, which of course is driving the prices lower and lower. And within 20 minutes, most of the class was either penniless or worse, deep in the red. Thus began our unit on the Great Depression. A few weeks later, everyone comes into class and sits down, and the teacher starts passing out papers to the first kid in each column, and everyone does the take one and pass it back thing. Before they can even all be completely distributed, he's coming around with the second sheet. When you get the paper, it's a plain white Xerox, with about size 12 font capital X's printed all over it, edge to edge, no margins, as many as will fit. You get the second sheet, and it's the same thing, and a third, fourth, fifth. After a few more rounds, he instructs us to just grab a few and pass the test back, and starts distributing stacks of these pages, all covered in X's. He does this for the entire 40-minute period, never saying a word other than brief instructions, and ignoring all questions. About 2 or 3 minutes before the end of the period, he stops. Everyone has dozens of pages, all the same thing, covered in the X's. Students have piles and piles of pages all over their desks, on the floor. You name it, and they've got these sheets and stacks on it. Once he stops handing out, he simply stands up at the front of the room and says something like, "Each X on the pages I just handed out represents one Jewish person killed in the Holocaust. I still have more stacks to pass out, but I don't have enough time. I want you to look at these sheets and understand that each letter X is representative of an actual human being, with a family and friends and a life. Please just take a few moments in silence and think about all the X's you're all holding right now." We have about a minute of silence, and then he very simply says, "We're out of time for today. We'll begin tomorrow, but I want you to remember this. Please leave your pages in the box by the door on your way out. And please don't discuss today's class with any of your friends, as they deserve to experience it in the same way as you. Goodbye." A young lady walked off her pet dog at a house party. I heard it was true when I went to talk to her, because she was in my friend's circle. I said, "Hey, just so you know, I don't believe those disgusting rumors going around that you blew a dog. That's just awful. I don't know who would even come up with something like that." And she up and said, "Yeah, I didn't blow him. I just tugged him off a bit." Stunned silence said it. Please stop asking what country, state, school this was. For one thing, I'm not trying to out the dog wonker. Plus, I'm not going to thereby say what high school I myself went to. But most importantly, every time one of you guesses incorrectly, that's just another unfortunate incident of pet molestation I'm now aware of. One incident was enough. Too much, even. So, I was the one who started the rumor, but while it was true, it remained a rumor for over a year. I had this photography teacher who, while we were in the dark room developing our pictures, would sit on his computer, trawl through MySpace to find what were, very obviously, teenage girls' account, and play pocket pool thinking no one was any the wiser. We found this out because we already got super creepy vibes off him, and a couple of us decided to spend an entire class period slowly and cautiously spinning the door to the dark room around to spy on him. The door was similar to a rotating glass door, but made entirely of black plastic so it wouldn't bleed any light into the dark room and ruin any pictures. We basically inched it slowly around till we could see through a crack in it, and spent 30 minutes watching him be a total creep before almost hurling when we saw him finish and get up to leave and use the restroom. We told faculty in the office, and they told us we must be mistaken. We told other teachers, and they brushed us off. Then, a year later, he was administering some kind of test, and while the students were sitting down, he fired up his computer to watch teen porn, completely forgetting his computer was still hooked up to the new digital projector in his class. I wasn't there, but from the stories, everyone froze, uncomfortable awkwardness till one kid whipped his phone out, took a picture and absolutely sprinted to the office. Teach dipped and wasn't found. The police showed up, kids were interviewed, and I was given a hefty apology by the faculty that hadn't believed me. The big rumor that was always going around at my high school was that two band kids got caught banging in the auditorium, and that's why they started keeping all the doors locked in the band auditorium hallway. This allegedly happened when my brother, who's 4 years older than me, was in high school, and I vaguely remember him coming home from school and telling me about it one day. The story got passed around a lot for years and it was different every time. Cut to me 20 for F being like 19. I started dating an older guy and someone told me that he was a bad kid in high school and apparently got suspended for like a month once. I thought that was hilarious and that she was joking or making it up because this guy is a nerd who got straight A's and probably never even got so much as a detention his whole life. I asked him about it, jokingly, just out of curiosity. Hey, did you ever get suspended in high school? He said, oh, I guess you heard about that. Turns out I married my high school's legend. For the record, he got some consensual head in the auditorium dressing room. He got in trouble one time in his entire life and the students at our high school still talk about it, year after year. When I told my brother my now husband was that guy, he said, oh shit, that dude's a legend. Not exactly the response I expected from my overprotective brother, but one that I will never forget. In high school, there was an old rumor that one of the classrooms was haunted by a teacher that was murdered in it. As the story goes, the teacher was failing one of his students and, when he refused to bump her grade up, she told her older brothers that the teacher had raped her. The brother got some of his friends together, and they waited until the teacher stayed late in his classroom, then murdered him and made it look like a suicide, because the school district, which was already in bad shape, didn't want another scandal. They didn't allow for a thorough investigation, so the boys never got caught. Everyone thought it was in the band hall, since it used to be multiple classrooms before it became the band hall, and we all believed that rumor too since it was super creepy in there. Turns out, the murder actually took place in a separate room, one of the best art classrooms on campus. Everything else though, that was true. My parents were teaching in the same district when it happened, and they said the school argued left and right that the teacher had committed suicide, despite all the signs pointing at the body being staged. Despite their official statement, they later made it a district policy for teachers to not stay on campus past 6 p.m., and that students couldn't be on campus unless for clubs or tutoring, which you had to have a pass for. I remember my mom always hauling ass when she ended up working late, telling me to book it when 5:50 p.m. rolled around. I always thought it was just because she was mean. I didn't find out about the story until I asked her about the rumor. Turns out, she'd learned about the story during her first few years of teaching and it had scared the shit out of her. Especially since she was a rough teacher herself, always a fun story to bring up during Halloween and at parties.